the one, the only, Bencio. Good afternoon and welcome to Yeshiva YouTube Table Enabled. Today we're doing Shulchan Aruch Yomi Siman Reish Lamed Beis 232 Hilchos Tfilas HaMincha. We've concluded Hilchos Brachos after many simanim. Can't even remember when we started Hilchos Brachos. It's been at least around 30 simanim. Hilchos Tfilas Mincha Aleph. Imashad Chuka Yispal Balachash. If it's getting late, time is our Shkia is about to come, he should daven privately. A lot of people, you don't see this so much in the yeshivish world. People have, set times to daven mincha. But I remember when I was in college and things like that, so it was kind of rushed or harried. There's not much time between classes to daven mincha, so maybe you have 10 minutes or something like that. It's not enough time for each person to daven their own Shmona Esrei, and then the Shliach Tzibur to take all the brachos. So therefore, in a harried situation, what you can do, a lot of people do, is the Shliach Tzibur says the first brachos. As the Ramah says, the Ramah recommends that also, when he says it out loud, you should follow along. And then when he says Kedusha, then you should continue your Shemona Esrei. But technically, the basic halacha is you can listen to him and then start your own Shemona Esrei. It's recommended, according to Ramah, you should follow along with him. A person shouldn't get a haircut before Mincha until he davens. You shouldn't go into a spa or a bathhouse. You shouldn't go into a place. Now, Alborski is a place where they tan leather. It's not really relevant to most people during their days, but they do have people that engage. We're talking about people that work in the leather department, and they're tanning leather. So for them, it's a big deal. It could take a long time. Below ladin, you also shouldn't go into a court case. Below lechol, you shouldn't even start eating. Afilu sudaktana, even a small meal. We'll discuss soon what is small meals and what is a big meal. Samach l'mincha gdola, close to mincha gdola. Samach l'mincha gdola generally means a half an hour before. So mincha gdola is around 12:30, right? 12:30 on a 6-6 day. Chatzos is 12 o'clock, and you're not allowed to daven until mincha gdola is a half an hour after. So at 12 o'clock, some mincha gdola, you shouldn't have a meal. If you start any one of these 5 things, even when samach, right, the right time when you're not allowed to, eno mafsik, or even after the time, afal pisha ischal be'isar, even though you started be'isar, because it's only this derabbanan there. As long as whatever you're doing, whether it's a haircut or whether in a judgment in a court case or whether you're eating a meal, it's predictable that you'll probably finish before shkia. However, if you know you're sitting at a big meal, or you're sitting in a bit long court case, it's going to go till the evening, so then you have to get up right away and daven. When is it considered starting, right, that you started already your haircut, that you don't have to stop? When you put the cape, there's a certain cape they put on you. When you go to the bathhouse, the spa, you can take off your upper clothes, not your underwear. Even your upper clothes, your shirt and your pants. When you go to tan leathers, it takes a long time. It's when you hang up a piece of leather that you're going to tan. If they already started the court case, let's say your court case was adjourned yesterday, and you're continuing the court case. So then you go basically when the lawyers start to speak. If this is the first time, now they're sitting down for a court case, when the judges, this is common nowadays, they wear these black, basically dresses almost, these black capes. And places where they don't wear those capes, it's when they sit down. When do you consider started your meal? Once you do Netilas Yadayim. Hagav yesh cholkim. Some disagree. Usvir lehu the sudaktana mutter. A small meal is mutter samach lemincha gedola, meaning within a half an hour of mincha gedola. Once mincha gedola starts, you can't have a small suda, but samach lemincha gedola, you could have a small meal. Main also rak usudas nisuin al mila. The only isser is a wedding meal or a meal for a bris milah, which is all considered a big meal. I'll talk in Iyam Mitzion. I don't believe this is the correct definition of suda ktana and suda gedola. There's another opinion. Is the Balamor says that even a suda gedola, right, even a big meal, a wedding meal, according to the Torah, is mutter by samach lemincha gedola. The suda ktana, feel samach lemincha ktana shari. This is the opinion of the Torah, the name of the Re, that next to mincha ktana is at 3:30 in the afternoon. Samach lemincha ktana be at 3 o'clock. You're allowed to have a small meal. Now, each of these opinions, the Balamor and the Re, argue on each other about the other case. According to the Re, big meal you can't have samach gedola, and according to the Balamor, a small meal you can't start before mincha ktana. We're making like all this for us. Even though there's no opinion who says all these things. Next to a mincha gedola, you can start a big meal, and a small meal you can even start before mincha ktana. We have sharatam, but once it reaches 12:30, everyone agrees you can't start a big meal. And once it reaches 3:30, you can't start a small meal. The whole reason this was instituted is because we're afraid you're going to miss mincha. You get engaged in these activities, it'll draw on, and you'll forget about davening mincha. But nowadays we have either you have set time. The halach, I believe the Shura says, if you have a set time every day, you come to daven, you'll know you come. I used to be also there people who would call out. We need a 10th person or making a minyan, so therefore you would never miss it. So there's no problem. However, the Ramah says it's noteworthy that maybe you should be machmir to not start a wedding meal. Now I know that some Rabbanim believe a yantiv meal is also the suda gedola, so therefore not to start a yantiv meal too late. If you start a yantiv meal on the day of yantiv, or a Shabbos meal, if you start it, let's say on a 6-6 day after 12 o'clock, it's a problem. I think this Rav Hershel Schachter was a rabbi, I remember, who said this. If a Yom Tov meal is considered a suda gedola, but a Shabbos meal is not. I don't know. So Yom Tov, he was very machmir. Or maybe he held a Shabbos meal also. It's just a lot of times the Yom Tov meals would start later. I think he was machmir on mincha ktana, because let's say Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, or Rosh Hashanah, not Yom Kippur, you don't eat, but Rosh Hashanah, you get home like 3 o'clock. So it could be 3 o'clock, some mincha ktana, you can't even start. Because even though we're makel to start a mincha, samach lemincha ktana, a small meal, to have a big meal, he considered a big meal, considered a Yom Tov meal a big meal. Samach lemincha ktana, everyone agrees that's asur. The Ramah says even a big meal next to mincha gedola we shouldn't do. And even if you were lenient and you said you could start, when mincha ktana comes, when 3:30 comes, and Sha'o Veres, meaning you realize this is going to probably go on till the evening, till Shkia, so therefore, once mincha ktana comes, you have to get up and daven. Gimel, what's considered a suda ktana? When you sit down and you establish yourself to eating a meal. Just to have some fruits, it's not a meal. Also eat amount of bread, which is a kibetza. Kibetza, different opinions how much a kibetza is. Most people would assume it's the size. A kibetza is around, some say 2 kazesim, some say 1.5 kazayas, what a betza is. But if it's a small amount of bread, right, so that's a suda ktana. It's not even a suda ktana. And some people say even you're eating mazonos, so you're eating cookies or something like that. You can't be more than a kibetza. I don't believe that's true. I think bread, because bread, it's a meal. If you eat a kibetza of bread, that means you're having something else with the meal. So that's really a meal. If you're having some wafers, you're having some rugelach, that's not a meal. Any snack, you have 100 rugelach, it doesn't make a difference. I don't think that's called a suda. It's not a suda. It's a snack. I mean, no one eats rugelach for a meal. That's the conclusion of today's share. Stay tuned for Ian to lean on, where I talk about what I really believe the real suda gdol and the real suda ktana is, and it's a big kula as usual. Ian to lean on coming up next.